If you're a die-hard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. The Cleveland Browns are stepping into the 2025 season with a clear vision for their offensive identity, one that leans heavily on two tight end sets and demands a deep, versatile tight end room to match. That strategy was reflected in the team's decision to draft Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green in the 3rd round, pairing him with veteran David Njoku to give Deshaun Watson a dual threat in the passing game. But behind those two, the tight end depth chart gets shaky. The names Blake Whiteheart, Brendan Bates, and Sal Cannella don't exactly spark confidence when you're envisioning a playoff-caliber offense. All three were undrafted, and none has proven he can step into a major NFL role. If the Browns want to truly commit to this new identity and guard themselves against the inevitable injuries that pile up over a grueling season, then they need to look outside the building. And right now, one name makes a whole lot of sense: Noah Fant. Noah Fant, just released by the Seattle Seahawks, is suddenly available, and for a team like Cleveland, that should send off alarm bells in the best possible way. At just 27 years old, Fant still has plenty of juice left in the tank. He was a first-round pick back in 2019, drafted by the Denver Broncos out of Iowa, and came into the league with the kind of athletic upside that had scouts drooling over 3 seasons in Denver. Fant averaged over 40 yards per game and scored at least 3 touchdowns in each of those years. Then came the blockbuster Russell Wilson trade in 2022, which saw Fant sent to Seattle as part of the package. While the Seahawks leaned more on their young tight ends last season, Fant still managed to post 500 receiving yards in just 14 games, his best mark in a Seattle uniform. Despite playing fewer games than usual, Fant's release on Sunday was less about performance and more about finances and youth movement. Seattle wants to develop their younger talent, and letting Fant go saves them valuable cap space. But for the Browns, this is a golden opportunity. Fant is not an elite, game-changing tight end, but he's a very capable pass catcher who can step into a meaningful role immediately. He's not a traditional blocker, which might seem like a limitation given Cleveland's desire to run the ball and dominate physically up front. However, he brings a skill set that matches the style of Njoku and Fannin, and in today's NFL, having 3 tight ends who can stretch the field is never a bad thing. Fant could give the Browns an offensive insurance policy and perhaps more. Importantly, a proven talent who won't cost too much. Of course, there are those who will argue that the Browns need a run-blocking specialist more than another receiving tight end. And that's not entirely wrong when Kevin Stefanski dials up heavy sets. Having a mauler who can seal the edge and open lanes is critical. Maybe Cleveland thinks one of Whiteheart, Bates, or Cannella can fill that role. Maybe they see enough in Fannin's frame and upside to develop him into a capable blocker. But here's the thing: blocking tight ends are easier to find and cheaper to develop. What's harder to acquire mid-season is a tight end with Fant's experience and ability to make a real impact in the passing game, especially in the red zone or on critical 3rd downs. Adding him wouldn't be about replacing Njoku or taking away snaps from Fannin. It would be about adding depth and optionality to a position group that has thin margins. Fant's presence would also give the Browns a kind of roster flexibility they currently lack. With a tight end like Fant on the field, defenses are forced to stay honest. He's not a guy you can ignore in coverage, and his route running can stretch linebackers and safeties in uncomfortable ways. That opens up opportunities for receivers, for play-action concepts, and even for creative motion packages. This isn't about building a Pro Bowl trio at tight end. It's about constructing a modern, adaptable offense that can keep defenses guessing. For a team that still has question marks in its receiving cores, especially behind Amari Cooper, adding Fant might be one of the smartest and most efficient ways to raise the offensive floor without having to make a blockbuster trade or overpay a free agent wide receiver. And there's a locker room angle here, too. Fant is known as a professional, a guy who shows up, puts in the work, and doesn't cause waves. That matters, especially when you're integrating new pieces into a tight-knit position group. Njoku is the emotional leader of that room, and having another experienced voice who's played in multiple systems and handled the ups and downs of the NFL can only help the development of someone like Fannin. If Fant buys into a rotational role, his impact could go well beyond the stat sheet. Veteran depth matters in December and January, and Cleveland is building a roster that's aiming to play meaningful football deep into the winter. Signing Fant would send the right message that the front office is still hunting every edge it can find. Let's not forget that injuries are inevitable in the NFL. It's not a matter of if, but when. Tight ends take a beating. They block like linemen and get hit like receivers. David Njoku has had his share of injuries in past seasons, and expecting a rookie like Fant to play all 17 games and produce consistently is a gamble. That's where Fant becomes even more valuable. He's a safety net. Someone who can step in and carry the load if needed, without completely reshaping the offensive scheme. Cleveland isn't just building for Week 1, they're building for the long haul. And having reliable veterans who can step up when adversity hits is how good teams stay in the hunt. When others fade away. Now, let's talk money. Fant isn't going to command top-tier tight end money on the open market. He's not in the Travis Kelce or George Kittle tier, and he's coming off a quiet year in terms of touchdowns. But his production, 500 yards in 14 games, still speaks to a player who can contribute meaningfully. The Browns have some cap flexibility, and if Fant's market stays soft, this could be the perfect low-risk, high-reward signing. It's a classic move for a contender. Find value in experienced veterans who've been let go for financial reasons, not talent reasons. Cleveland wouldn't have to overextend itself financially, and they'd be getting a player with a clear fit in their offensive blueprint. It's the kind of move that smart front offices make while others are asleep at the wheel. In the end, this comes down to a simple question. Do the Browns want to be reactive or proactive, waiting until someone gets hurt or until the offense starts to sputter? Is a recipe for desperation signings. Signing Noah Fant now, before the season, is a proactive step that adds real depth, builds trust in the locker room, and shows the entire roster that the front office is serious about contending. It's about foresight, preparation, and the belief that every piece matters. Fant may not be the final piece of the puzzle, but he's the kind of piece that helps everything else fit together more cleanly. The Browns have made it clear they want to evolve offensively in 2025. Adding a player like Fant is how you make sure that evolution has the right tools to succeed. So here's the bottom line. Noah Fant makes too much sense for the Cleveland Browns to ignore. He's experienced, productive, available, and likely affordable. He fits the mold of what the offense is becoming, complements what they already have, and provides valuable insurance against injuries, while other teams might hesitate or wait for the market to shake out. The Browns should act decisively. Fant won't be on the market forever, and waiting too long could mean missing out. If Cleveland is serious about taking the next step in 2025, about turning offensive potential into consistent production, then it's time to pick up the phone and bring in Noah Fant. Because in the marathon of an NFL season, the teams that win are the ones who prepare for everything, even the depth chart behind the stars. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. The NFL rumor mill is spinning once again, and this time, the buzz centers around a move that could shake up the AFC North. JAUAN Jennings, the gritty do-it-all wide receiver formerly with the San Francisco 49ers, has reportedly signed with the Cleveland Browns, while the team hasn't officially announced the deal yet. Insiders close to the situation say the contract is all but finalized. If this proves true, the Browns are getting more than just a wideout. They're getting a powerhouse of physicality and precision. Jennings, known for his fierce blocking ability and knack for making tough catches in traffic, brings a new edge to the Browns' offensive scheme. His reputation as a blocker has turned heads across the league, and his average of 975 receiving yards per season makes him more than just a complimentary piece. He could become a vital weapon for Deshaun Watson and company. Something big is brewing in Cleveland. Rumors like this don't just come out of nowhere, and this particular one has traction thanks to several insiders who've seen Jennings at Browns facilities in recent days. Social media detectives were quick to notice him exiting a team SUV near the Browns headquarters, and sources suggest he's already met with offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey to discuss his potential role. With Amari Cooper aging and Elijah Moore still looking for consistency, the Browns may be looking for a reliable chain mover, someone who isn't afraid to take hits over the middle, who can block like a tight end, and who delivers nearly 1,000 yards a season without demanding WR1 spotlight. Jennings checks all those boxes. He's tough, unselfish, and brings that dog mentality Cleveland fans crave. If this rumor proves true, it signals a strategic shift in how the Browns want to play. Physical, controlled, and relentless on offense. Let's not forget what Jennings brings beyond stats. He brings culture. Every team needs that lunch pail guy, the one who doesn't need flashy headlines but earns respect in the trenches with the 49ers. Jennings earned a reputation as one of the best blocking wide receivers in the NFL, a trait often overlooked but incredibly valuable in run-heavy or balanced offenses. That's precisely what the Browns are trying to build. With Nick Chubb returning from injury and the Browns committed to a run-first approach, a receiver like Jennings fits perfectly. His blocks can spring Chubb into the second level, and his presence alone forces defenders to stay honest. That kind of effort and commitment to team success can spread like wildfire in the locker room. Jennings is the kind of player who might not fill highlight reels, but he wins you games in the margins. And those are the games that make or break playoff hopes in a division as brutal as the AFC North. Of course, we have to ask, what does this mean for the rest of the Browns receiving corps if Jennings is indeed joining the team? Someone snaps are going to drop. Could it be David Bell? Maybe Cedric Tillman gets pushed further down the depth chart. While Jennings isn't a diva, he expects to be involved, and rightfully so. Given his production and consistency, his route running might not dazzle, but it's efficient. His hands are reliable, and he has a quarterback-friendly style that's all about timing and toughness. That's exactly what Deshaun Watson needs right now. Coming off a rocky, injury-riddled season, Watson needs targets he can trust, not just speedsters, but guys who fight for the ball, understand spacing, and deliver in crunch time. If this move materializes, it might be less about star power and more about solidifying a foundation that helps Watson thrive under center in 2025. Digging deeper, this potential signing could be a sign that the Browns are leaning into an identity that fans have been calling for: smashmouth football with intelligent, unselfish players. JAUAN Jennings epitomizes that approach at 6'3", 215 pounds. He's built more like a hybrid between a big slot and a tight end. He's not blowing by corners, but he's out-muscling them, and in cold weather games, especially in Cleveland come November and December, that physicality becomes even more valuable. It's one thing to have burners on the outside, but it's another to have a guy who can move the chains, keep drives alive, and block downfield like a pulling guard. Jennings can be that guy. The Browns might be thinking long-term here, not just about matchups, but about postseason DNA. Players like Jennings help you win in January. And if Cleveland has learned anything over the past few years, it's that grit matters more than flash. Now, let's speculate on the financials. While no official numbers have been reported, a player like Jennings wouldn't command WR1 money. But he also won't come cheap given his value, something in the range of 2 years. $12 to $14 million seems plausible, especially when you factor in his blocking prowess and nearly 1,000-yard production. If the Browns managed to snag him on a deal in that range, it would be an incredible value pickup. General Manager Andrew Berry has made a name for himself by finding under-the-radar players who outperform their contracts, and Jennings could be another feather in his cap. His arrival could also be a signal that Cleveland is preparing for some upcoming roster moves, or even surprise cuts. A team as cap-aware as the Browns doesn't make a move like this without a bigger picture in mind. Could this be part of a larger puzzle, perhaps the beginning of a reshaped defensive strategy? Adding to the intrigue, this could also reshape how defenses approach the Browns. If Jennings lines up in the slot, opposing defensive coordinators will have to decide whether to use a nickel corner, a linebacker, or a safety, and none of those matchups are particularly favorable. He's too big for corners, too quick for most linebackers, and too physical for safeties. That creates schematic advantages. And when you pair that with a strong run game and a quarterback like Watson who thrives on play action, things start to look really dangerous. Imagine Jennings cracking a block on an outside zone run, then slipping into the seam on the very next play for a 20-yard gain. He brings versatility that forces defenses into uncomfortable spots. That's the kind of layered offense that turns good teams into great ones. The Browns may be building something special, and Jennings might just be the missing piece. Another layer to this rumor, the locker room impact. Players like Jennings change the tone of a team, not just with their play but with their attitude. Ask any 49ers player about Jennings, and they'll likely rave about his toughness, his leadership by example, and his refusal to quit on plays. That kind of grit is contagious. And the Browns, who've struggled with inconsistency in locker room cohesion at times, could benefit massively from that presence. He's not a guy who's going to dominate headlines, but he commands respect, and in a team trying to shift from being just good on paper To being a legitimate contender, those intangibles matter if the Browns are truly making a culture. Play here, Jennings could become one of the most important additions of the offseason. Not because of flashy stats, but because of what he brings to meetings, practices, and crucial third downs. Let's not forget the timing of all this. Training camp is right around the corner, and the Browns are clearly trying to finalize their offensive identity before preseason games begin. Bringing in a guy like Jennings now would give him time to gel with Watson, learn the playbook, and establish chemistry with the rest of the receiving corps. There's also the element of competition, something head coach Kevin Stefanski values deeply. Jennings' arrival would push everyone else to step up, especially those fighting for WR3 or WR for spots. It could light a fire under guys who've coasted or haven't developed as quickly as expected. In the NFL, competition breeds excellence, and Jennings brings the kind of work ethic that raises the bar for the entire room. If this rumor proves true, it could be one of those moves that flies under the radar in July but makes all the difference when December football rolls around. At the end of the day, whether this turns out to be official tomorrow or remains a whisper for a few more days, the potential signing of JAUAN Jennings by the Cleveland Browns is the kind of move that gets smart fans excited. It's not the loudest headline, but it's one that says, we know what kind of football we want to play. Jennings is a tone setter, a physical force on the field and a glue guy off it. His consistent production, blocking prowess, and unselfish attitude make him exactly the kind of player you want on your roster if you're serious about chasing a championship. So while we wait for confirmation, let the speculation run wild. Could this be the Browns' smartest offseason move yet? Only time will tell, but if you're a Cleveland fan, this is one rumor you're definitely hoping turns out to be true. Keep your eyes on Bria. Something special might just be starting. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!